right. And we are back for season 2 of PB Betting College Football Podcast. Mr. Paisley, great to be back. Another off season completed. Man, this just flew by.
Yes, sir. Yeah, happy to be back here. We got renewed for a second season by the higher ups at our company, so we are happy to be back, better than ever. But yeah, time is flying by. It's fun getting back into the prep, doing all the prep work for this show and the upcoming season, and going to be an exciting one, especially for our two favorite teams. Case should be another fun season. Hopefully, some deep playoff runs
Yep.
on the horizon.
Hopefully, we have some rematches also this year.
Yeah, I know the Penn State fans are probably chomping at the bit to get back at us, but it's all right.
Um, yeah, so exciting season. Thank you to anybody listening out there. We're going to be on Spotify this year, so brand new. We're going to expand the podcast a little bit. Also, Apple Music for those out there listening to that. And also new is our own YouTube channel. So last year we were on Mr. Whitaker's YouTube channel. So big shout out to Alec Whitaker and everything over there. But decided to go a little different route. We have our own stuff set up this year. So yeah, hopefully you follow us all season long.
Yeah, did so well, so profitable last year. We're able to expand here and give our viewers what they want. So,
and a huge shout out to Johnson Drywall also coming back
yes.
for year 2 as our sponsor. Builds our studio built by Johnson Drywall. So
we're to pay them a lot more. Their prices are going up with these prices nowadays too. But
that's right. That's right. All right. So might as well get right into this. We're going to try to keep it around 45 minutes, maybe to an hour, somewhere in there. First one, we're going to cover a lot. Just go through each conference, all Power 4 conferences, group of 5, and then also the last 5-10 minutes, we're going to talk about week 0 and some of those games and have some picks. So Jared and I didn't really speak about how we're going to do this, but I was thinking, why don't you could pick a conference to start off. You can pick your picks. I'll do the same, and then I'll pick the second conference, and we could kind of just do all 4, and then get to the group of 5, and wrap it up with that.
Sure. Yeah, no, I like that. Let's start with the conference that has had the last 2 national champions. That is the Big Ten Conference. I think there's a lot of great intrigue, a lot of great stories in this conference. Going to be looking at, again, probably a Big Ten SEC dominated field here, but let's start with the Big Ten. I'll start with, we're going to go through surprise teams, the teams we think we're going to do well this season, maybe a little bit under the radar, some disappointing teams that might fall a little flat in our eyes. Then we're going to give out a best bet for each conference at the end of it and give our title game picks as well. So I'll start us off here with a surprise team that I think is actually going to be better, a lot better than last year. I'm going to start with the Michigan Wolverines. We were not too high on them last year. For good reasons. They did not really have a passing attack to speak of. They got the big 5-star recruit Bryce Underwood coming in at QB, probably going to be starting day 1. Didn't lose a ton, honestly, on defense. Their defense played really good. They still won 6 or 7 games last year with averaging barely 100 yards passing a game. So I think the pass game could only get better from there. They bring in some nice running back transfers in the portal. I think Bryce Underwood's a really solid quarterback. I think he's going to pop right away, has all the tools. Don't love the DC and Wink Martindale back from the Giants days. Could get a little blitz happy, but I think the defense is really good. I think people are underestimating them because of how bad they were last year and hard to watch on television. But I think they have a really easy schedule for Big Ten matters. They avoid some big opponents and then just have the Ohio State game at the end of the year. So I wouldn't be afraid to say Michigan's going to have a nice bounce back season here. And maybe just sneak their way into the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, well, that's a bold take, Mr. Paisley. You don't hear a lot about Michigan right now in the Big Ten. It's kind of been all Penn State or Ohio State and Oregon. So when I saw that pick of yours, I was pretty intrigued by it. I think it's a good pick. I think you have a chance with them, just like you said, with the schedule. I think that's more favorable than anything. They avoid Penn State also. They don't go there or anything like that. And so I guess what you're saying is they're not going to be affected by these huge sanctions they have to go overcome this season.
Yeah, really put them down a couple millions of dollars for cheating their way to a national title, but that's all they can do. So NCAA just remains a joke nowadays.
I'm going to take a similar route, honestly, on the surprise team. this is, I mean, a team I've probably lost more money on than any team I've bet on since I've been 21, and that is the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
He's
I,
going down that. He's going back down.
I'm going back to the well with Nebraska. It's a new year. It's a new era. You know, things are changing. What is this, year 3 or so under Matt Rule? And look, they may not be the most talented in the country. I mean, by any means, maybe not even a top 20 roster, but the schedule's perfect. And so much of college football is momentum. And, you know, it's hard to follow all the guys on each team. But, you know, one thing is, you know, we saw Indiana last year. I didn't know a lot about Indiana going in. I don't think, you know, neither of us really knew a ton about their roster, but just the schedule lines up perfect. They had a good coaching staff. They're better than a lot of the teams they play, even if they win games by 3 or 4. If they win the game, that could build momentum. And I just think momentum is so big. You know, it is in college football. They're really their hardest game is, I mean, it's at Penn State, obviously in November, but there's a scenario that they could be like 9-1 with a just loss to Michigan. They play Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota. They open up, you know, with Akron, and well, they actually open up with Cincinnati and then Akron. So it's just a very favorable schedule, and I think that they have a chance to at least get over their win mark and possibly, you know, approach playoff territory at the end of the season, if it all happens, if they go 10-2 and all that works out. But I'm going back to the well. New season, chance to lose more money. Going Nebraska, surprising team.
I like it. No, I mean, if there's ever a year, this should be the year. Matt Rule, 3rd seasons, has been really good to him. This is his 3rd year at Nebraska. Dylan Raiola, forgot this is only 2nd year starting. I feel like he's been there a while, but so yeah, it should all click. I'd like to jump on them, but I just got to see it with Nebraska, but don't hate that pick. Another quick team I want to just spotlight here is USC too. I think we were a little higher on them last year. They had a brutal schedule, but still battled through and did pretty well. They led in a lot of fourth quarters, just had a lot of blunders late. So I think that forward progression should lead them good into this year. Coming off of some good performances, just didn't get a lot of wins. So just trying to look for teams that performed better than their record maybe, and then vice versa once we get into the disappointing teams. But they still have the quarterback that started that last game against Notre Dame, Jordan Malava, I think his name is, or something like that. A little dual threat, not going to be the Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield that Lincoln Riley is accustomed to, but he played really well towards the end of the year. I think he just needs more reps. Schedule kind of breaks the right way for them as well. Always going to be tough with the East to West Coast travel, but I do see USC having a nice season. They'd kind of be my dark horse with Michigan to maybe put a little scare into Penn State or Ohio State, some of those teams at the top, or Oregon too. But we'll just transition right into one of my disappointing teams, actually, with Oregon. I'm not high on the Oregon Ducks this year, honestly, Case. I'm not a fan of Dante Moore at all. I think he's just very overhyped. He's been in the season now, or been in their program now 2 years, going to get the start. But I think people are underselling the losses of Dylan Gabriel and then Bo Nix before him. Like, they had 2 of the most experienced quarterbacks in college football, really leading the charge for them the last couple of years. Now you're going to a really young, turnover-prone quarterback, so I think it's going to be really different. They lost a couple guys to injury, lost a couple star players to the NFL draft. So I just think people are penciling in Oregon, which I thought you could do. I think Dylan Gabriel was really good in college last year. I don't know how his NFL career is going to shake out, but I just think Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix having that stability at quarterback really carried Oregon the last couple of years, and I think they're really going to be hurt by it. You talked about that game early at Penn State, the whiteout. I think that's going to be a huge struggle. And then they got to play some tough. I think Washington's going to have a nice up year as well. They got to go to Washington. They play USC. So definitely some challenging games there. Their win total was under 10.5. I saw that took some under money. Didn't really hate that. So honestly, I think Oregon could have a little bit of a bumpier year, and people are just kind of slotting them into the playoff. And I'd kind of have some pushback on that.
That's a great point. They did lose a lot, and Tez Johnson too. That he was great for them. He's no longer there, and that's another good pick. You don't see that. A lot of the national media is some of the more just chalk picks, which is fine, but that's a great thought process on Oregon. I don't have them on my disappointment list, but I could see it going there. I mean, especially if Penn State does what they're supposed to do and could beat them early and kind of set Oregon back early, you could have a whole different season. Would also be interesting to see what happens with Dan Lanning at the end of the year, because those fans, despite going 12-0, they might be the only team in history that went 12-0 last year. That, well, actually Florida State, but that the fans are just not happy. It's funny. He beat Ohio State in the regular season, but then you go to the playoff, you get crushed. You don't do anything the year before that. And if Oregon has another year where they lose late or miss the playoffs, even, I could see his seat getting just a little bit. I don't want to say hot, but it get close to there.
Yeah, and just quickly and pull up the schedule here. They go to Penn State, play Indiana at home, go to Iowa, play USC at home, and then go to Washington last game of the year. I just think with a young quarterback, this could be dicey. So, yeah, I'm just seeing a couple more losses than people are seeing with Oregon.
Two teams that I'm going to quickly just highlight on as a disappointment. And before anybody is like, what is this guy talking about? I'm going Illinois and Indiana as disappointing. Two teams that are kind of on the up, and teams that are ranked pretty high. Illinois 20 or 12, Indiana 20. They're good teams, and I'm not trying to say they're not good teams. They're probably, if not 3 and 4, they're probably 4th and 5th right now in the Big Ten. But my problem with Illinois and Indiana, I'm kind of just throwing them both into this bucket, is I just think they're both a little bit too overrated from last year. More so Indiana. I think Illinois has a stronger case, bringing back more guys. Luke Altmaier, I like their coach. Illinois, I think, is building a little bit more. I think they'll be a little bit better than Indiana, but I think I can see a scenario where both of these teams miss the playoffs by the end of the year. The Big Ten's not easy. They have to play teams still like Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. They have to go to Iowa. Michigan State's not a gimme for either of these teams, like historically. So if Indiana or Illinois drops 2 or 3 games, they miss the playoffs. And I think that's where the bar is for them. And that's why I think it's disappointing, because if they don't make the playoffs, I think both of those fan bases are going to kind of look back and say, this was our shot. This was another, great opportunity. So that's my only thought on them. I think they're probably top 25 teams, definitely Illinois. I'm not sold yet on Indiana, but I think they're probably top 25 teams. I just think that the bar is set a little bit too high, and it might be a little bit pattern for me tonight, but I think both of those fan bases are going to be disappointed by the end of the season.
Yeah, no, I think I totally agree with both of those statements, honestly, with Illinois for sure. But you're right, they're more veteran-led, so I could see them, kind of being a little bit better. Indiana just really had such a magical year last year. Everything kind of broke right with all the transfers hitting. The schedule broke out great. They got, a lot of wins. But then people forget, like, how'd they look against Ohio State, Michigan the second half, and Notre Dame in the playoff game? They couldn't even move the ball. So it's great you won those games that you could blow out teams, and they proved they could do that. But at a high-end level, now you're talking top 15, top 10 team. Now that's a different story for Indiana, and I think that could be a different story this year. So don't mind that. Everyone's kind of penciling them in again to be like, nope, they're going to be in the playoff easily, all that. Maybe pump the brakes a little bit on Indiana there. And then that'll get me to my best bet for the conference. I'm going to go to a win total. I'm going to go with UCLA, a team we didn't talk about. Under 5.5 wins, minus 150 at DraftKings. We could shop around. I don't see this team doing great. They got the prize possession, Nico Iamaleava or whatever his last name is from Tennessee that nobody wanted. UCLA was the only team that ponied up for him and gave him the money. But I just think there's a lot of holes. I thought they fought really well last year towards the end of the year, kind of played above their skill level, covered a lot of games, didn't win a lot of games. But this schedule is just brutal this year, I think, for UCLA. And I just really do not like the quarterback, Nico. I just don't think he's going to fit well in the system. Don't like the head coach. Their east to west travel is very brutal all year as it was last year. So just pulling up their schedule now as we got games against Penn State, Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC. They're just playing the tops of the top of the Big Ten, which is not an easy thing to do in this conference. So I don't know how they get to 6 wins. I do not see them getting to a bowl. So I got UCLA flaming out a little bit, and I see them more as a 3-4 win team this year.
No, I think that's a good conference bet. I'm also going to take an under. I'm going under 8.5 for a team that I just mentioned, Indiana. And it's not, once again, that I think they're a bad team. I just think 8.5 is a lot in a conference that's talented. And just really quick, they have to go play Illinois. They have to go to Iowa. They have to go to Oregon. They have to go to Penn State. They'd have to win at least one of those right there, but yet they still have to play Wisconsin at home. They play UCLA at home, Michigan State at home. They're not gimmies for Indiana. I mean, I think they should win those games, but that's just assuming they're going to run the board and then knock off one of the four that I first mentioned. So I like the under. It's at -135. So yeah, I think we're kind of on the same page on going unders in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And I think just overall unders are a little more safe for win totals because if there's injuries, uncertainty, or something like that,
Right.
for overs, you need everything to go right. So a lot of my picks that I've targeted for the season, looking at the unders, so you got to be really confident if you like an over or something in the winning the conference or title game. But where do you want to go to next, Case? I think we wrapped up the Big Ten. Anything else in the Big Ten before we move
Did
on?
we want to do a conference championship winner?
Oh, yes.
Conference
Forgot about
championship
that.
game? What are you thinking for that? Let's run through those.
So, yeah, for the conference championship game, I got Penn State winning the conference. We did not touch on them. Let you dive a little bit deeper if you'd like, Case, about your team there. I got Penn State over Michigan. I think Michigan's going to reach the title game, a little surprise team, and I think Penn State's going to win it. I think this is Penn State's year. I do not want to hype up the Penn State fans because I know they are very worried at the moment with all the hype they've been getting, but rightfully so. They got a nice team coming back, a lot of veterans. This is the year to do it for Penn State. If it's not this year, might not be for a while. So hopefully they get it done. But when you're talking Final Four, championship or bust, a lot of pressure, a lot of expectations, but rightfully so, with not really a clear-cut number one team this year really dominating. But what do you think about your Nittany Lions?
You're hyping me up, Paisley. I'm happy you said that. It's about time, giving Penn State some credit. No, you're a fair guy. But no, I mean you're right. The writing's on the wall for them. They're bringing back, a 3-year starting quarterback. He's a senior, arguably, top 3 quarterback right now in college football. I know, some people rank him 5th, some put him 3rd, some put him 1st, whatever. Bringing back 2 All-American running backs. They bring in a whole new receiving core. And quite frankly, even if it's impossible for it could only get much better than it was last year. They didn't have a single receiver that caught the ball against, the loss to Notre Dame. They didn't have anybody. They lose Tyler Warren, but they bring back another nice tight end right behind him. They bring back a lot on defense. They have a great offensive line. I mean, there's no reason why they shouldn't be in the conversation. Will it happen? I don't think so. I have Ohio State over Penn State in the Big Ten. I'm just going on historicals here. I still can't really see a world where Penn State finds a way to beat them. At least, let alone once. They may have to even try to beat them twice. Maybe they lose to them in the regular season and then get a rematch game. I don't know. Maybe they do get the upset in one of them. But I just can't pick them until it happens. And that's kind of why I'm going to stick to Ohio State over Penn State. I think Penn State will be in the playoff. I don't see them losing more than, that one game, maybe 2, but really should not go anything worse than 11-1. But yeah, and your Michigan pick, that's a big pick. I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, big, you're high on the Wolverines this year. So we'll see what happens, but it's going to be fun. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we could have a James Franklin Big Ten championship, but I don't know. They'll be in the conversation, and that everybody knows that. It's just, will they finally get it over and be able to win that game? And I don't think it's really, I'm sure it is probably a little bit of Franklin, but it still just comes down to, haven't beaten Ohio State in, 9 years. Ohio State's going to be extremely talented. And honestly, all this hype around Penn State is just feeding also to Ohio State and the other Big Ten teams to try to, they're going to bring their A game also against them. So we'll see. We both have them there. I have Ohio State over them. You have them over Michigan. So that's the Big Ten conference. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I know. If there's ever your case, that game November 1st, I think it is, in Columbus. If they lose that one, that heads might be rolling on that.
I can't see them going there to win, but I hope I'm wrong. Maybe they'll lose, and then maybe they'll come back in the conference championship and beat them. I think actually that's more likely than the other one.
Would be a nice story. That'd be a nice story bookending. But yeah, going to be interesting. Can they do it? Can they get over the hump? We will see.
I hope so. All right, let's go. Why don't we? Let's see. Why don't we just go down south, Paisley, and hit the 2 best conferences right off the bat? Big Ten. Let's go to the SEC. Who's your surprise team?
My surprise team is Oklahoma. I really like what they've done here in the offseason. Again, Thought they played well last year in some spots. They got ravaged by injuries. They lost like 6 or 7 of their top receivers last year. O-line was really banged up. They were switching quarterbacks every game. It was just a mess. But really like the quarterback they bring in, John Mateer from Washington State. Not a lot of people watching Washington State late at night, but really solid guy, a little undersized, but they bring in his OC as well from Washington State. So I think the offense is really going to click. I like Venables on the defensive side. Got a lot of nice players there, especially on the defensive line. So I think if they could just stay away from the injury bug, stay healthy, I think the offense is going to take another step. I think the defense is always going to be solid. Big week 2 game against my Michigan Wolverines. So 2 of my big surprise teams going. That's going to be a great game week 2 there to watch in Norman, I think it is. So really looking for high expectations here for Oklahoma, not calling for an SEC championship or anything like that. Schedule's still really tough with all these SEC teams. You know, the SEC is very deep, as we know. So can they stay healthy? Are they deep enough? Those are going to be the questions. But I think Oklahoma is going to surprise some people this year, Case. And I could see them flirting with maybe 9 wins, maybe 10, maybe sneaking into the playoff late if all things go correctly. But I'm kind of like Oklahoma as my sleeper in the SEC.
Yeah, I think if Oklahoma gets to 9 wins, I think they'd be in, honestly. I think they'd be a bubble team probably, but I think they would almost be safely in just because of their schedule.
Right.
Texas, South Carolina, Ole Miss. I just pulled it up. Tennessee, Alabama, Michigan to start LSU. Like they have a full week in, week out grind. So even 8-4 could even get close to that top 15. Really, I mean, they were saying that about Florida. What were they saying about Florida if they went 7-5 last year? How they'd have a chance. It's not quite that difficult of a schedule as Florida had last year, but no, I like that pick. Also under the radar, away from the national spotlight. I'm kind of going a slightly different route. This team is almost picked on the bottom barrel of some of the SEC rankings this year, and it's the Auburn Tigers. I just think that it's kind of the opposite philosophy I had for Illinois and Indiana, where their expectations were so high. I just think Auburn's is kind of so low. It's like house money, and believe it or not, they have a pretty favorable schedule. Like I was going through, I didn't have a ton of time, but trying to go scan through some of the schedules and how the cards fell here in the SEC. And I mean, Auburn could not have gotten a more perfect draw.
Yeah.
Just really quick. Like if they do open up against Baylor, they could lose that game. But if they win that game, they have Ball State, they have South Alabama. Then they have a tough SEC stretch, not going to lie. Oklahoma, A&M, and Georgia. It's very tough. However, after that, it opens up again. Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Mercer, leading up to the rivalry game against Alabama. So they could compile a lot of wins. I mean, they could, I don't know what it'll be, 6 wins, 7 wins. I mean, 8 wins, could 9-3. I don't think anybody's thinking Auburn's going to go 9-3 this year even. So they're going to be my surprise team. I don't think they'll, quite get to that playoff caliber type of conversation, but it really is going to be that Oklahoma, A&M, Georgia stretch. If they could beat one of them, I mean, it's going to get really interesting for Auburn, but I just think the bar is so low that it's very possible that they'll exceed their expectations.
Yeah, no, I really like that pick, Case. That's really in the weeds. They've been kind of knocking at the door too. Just a lot of self-inflicted wounds the last couple of years. Can Hugh Freeze get it cleaned up there? But they bring in Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma last year. He's going to be in a new system. Should have really good wide receivers. And like some of these teams, a lot of big games early. So if they win that Baylor game, could really catapult them, could have a nice season. If they lose, still have some chances to get back, but some big games early to get a lot of momentum, get that chemistry, get that feeling right for the team. And then it could really just be, sky's the limit for them with that big game against Alabama at the end of the year. Anything could happen in that game. But I like the SEC being nice and deep this year. And I like Auburn being one of those teams that could be causing some problems as well. One team that I think we are going to agree on here, Case, I got 2 of them, but one for sure, and one of your other favorite guys. I got South Carolina as my disappointing team, and then I also am going to throw Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss in here as well.
Great picks.
Let's start with Mr. TikTok, Lane Kiffin, as we've talked about him last year. Last year was the year. I mean, they had Jackson Dart, really good quarterback now with the Giants, had a great team, unbelievable defense. I think people were really underestimating how good that defense was last year. They lose everybody. They lose everybody on the defense because they were so transfer portal heavy. A lot of seniors, a lot of guys to the draft. Lost a lot on the offensive line. They have that backup quarterback that came in a little bit in the Georgia game, the lefty, that I think should be solid, but he's not going to be the 3-year starter that Jackson Dart was. Again, losing some of these veteran guys in today's college football is really not a good sign for your team to then try and turn around and hand it off to a young guy. But I think Lane's just checked out. His last year was the year to do it, and I think he knows that, and this year is going to be really tough. So I feel like Ole Miss is really going to take a step back. And then also South Carolina, the Gamecocks. I think they had a really good year last year. Definitely exceeded some expectations. But again, that defense was insane. I saw they had like 7 or 8 guys on that defense drafted to the NFL, which you wouldn't think from a South Carolina defense, but very underrated. They lose a ton on defense. I don't like Shane Beamer as a coach. I think he's overrated. I don't like Lenore Sellers as a quarterback. He's getting some Heisman hype. I just don't see that. I think he had a solid year last year. He can't really throw the ball that great. Could run, great athlete, but I'm kind of selling South Carolina mainly because of this schedule. I mean, they get brutal lay of the land here. Have to play LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, then Ole Miss, and Texas A&M in 5 straight weeks. There might be a bye mixed in there, and then you end the season with Clemson. So I just don't see them having a great year. I think last year, again, they peaked last year, had a better year than expected. I think they come back down to earth and really disappoint there in South Carolina.
I love both of those picks. Lane Kiffin, I wasn't even going to mention TikTok Kiffin, but glad you did. You're right. They're a joke. They're going to be bottom of the barrel SEC. I didn't even want to mention them, but yeah, great pick. Couldn't agree more. Also on South Carolina, their schedule also once again brutal. Like it's bad, and I know we say that a lot about these SEC teams. I mean, they got a lot of highly rated teams going into the conference, but South Carolina also just not a great draw for them. And yeah, so in my disappointing teams, similar, I'm going Florida Gators, and it's mainly because, well, their schedule, yes, but I am not a fan of DJ Lagway. I just think the hype is so high, and similar to Lenore Sellers with South Carolina, I'm seeing a lot of articles. In fact, I just pulled up ESPN.com here. How convenient! And there's an article: Can DJ Lagway become Florida's next generational quarterback? And I'm going to answer that. And the answer, Paisley, is simply no, he can't. They're not. It's going to be the expectations high again for Florida, and they have a tough schedule. They have to go to LSU week 3. They have to go to Miami week 4. Then they come back home, play number 1 Texas. Then they have to go to one of the hardest places to play, Texas A&M. They have to play Georgia at home. It's a brutal schedule again, and I could see them losing all of those games. I mean, they probably won't. They'll probably pick off a few, but I just think Florida fans are not going to be happy with 7-5, and 7-5 might be decent. They might be a decent football team. That might be 10-2 in the Big 12. You know, we know this isn't all created equal, but I just think a lot of these fan bases have extremely high expectations this year. I think part of it is because it's so wide open. We said it last year, but it really even more so this year. I mean, I think 4 or 5 different teams had first place votes. So I just think Florida's gonna fall short. I don't think they're gonna be in the playoff conversation at the end of the year, like some people think they might be. And yeah, I'm also not a Lagway fan, so sorry to any Florida Gator fan listening out there. Robert Middleton, I think he's a Florida Gator fan.
I was literally going to say that. Shout him out. Shout out Robert.
Not sure he's listening to the pod, but if he is, yeah, anyway.
But yeah, DJ Lagway too. Is he a little Anthony Richardson 2.0? And we just saw what happened. Anthony Richardson in the NFL couldn't beat out Daniel Jones. They have these great, body types, physical presence. And one thing to keep in mind, DJ Lagway, he got injured last year with that gruesome injury, came back in the spring, kind of worked out. And then now he's injured again. I was seeing reports that he's not even practicing, or he's in and out of practice. So we're getting close to the season here, and he's not fully healthy, and that's supposed to be your generational guy, your top QB1. So if he's banged up going into the year, and he's a very physical player, is he going to last a full 12 games? I'm not certain. So if I'm not getting DJ Lagway for a full 12 games, I'd be selling my Florida stock too. So just something to keep in mind. And we'll definitely dive in more to this generational quarterback last name, probably more in week 1 when they play Ohio State, but with Texas, with Arch Manning. But that's another one, and we'll get into a little bit later in probably next podcast. I'm not as high on Arch Manning as some others. I think we're really going against the narrative here with some of these things, but you're talking about DJ Lagway with the generational hype, the talent, and I think you're getting the same thing with Arch Manning, and it's just way too out of proportion. Like they were calling Joe Burrow. Like Joe Burrow had one of the best seasons we've ever seen in college football. So some of these expectations, we tend to do that as fans and as viewers here in August and really blow these guys up a little bit. But I think to live up to some of these expectations, I think Arch Manning's going to fall a little short of that. But again, we'll discuss that. He'll be a big topic later on in the year. And then it'll lead me to my SEC championship game. I've actually got Alabama over Texas. I think Texas is still going to have a solid year. I still think Arch Manning's very good, but best player in the nation, number one pick. I don't know if he's that, but I think Texas is going to have a solid year. Obviously, their number one team going into the year, tons of talent on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. So I got Alabama beating Texas in the SEC championship, and then also a little sprinkle on a national title pick for myself for the best conference bet. I'm going to go Alabama to win the national title. Didn't talk about this team yet, but I think this team is very dangerous. They are definitely one of my top teams going into the year. I really do like Kalen DeBoer. I know it was an up and down season last year. I blame that more on Jalen Milroe. I was not a big Jalen Milroe fan. I thought he wasn't a great fit for what they wanted to do. DeBoer brings in his offensive coordinator from Washington that they had all those successful years with Michael Penix. I like Ty Simpson as a quarterback. I think they named him the starter. He should be close to getting named the starter. They have a good backup, more athletic guys. So they got two quarterbacks I think could still do some damage. I think Simpson just fits this system better, could spread it out to Ryan Williams, those guys on the outside, take their deep shots. And the defense, no one's really talking about because it's, no one really wants to dive into the defensive side of the ball. It's not too glamorous, but I think they could have the best defense in the country, which is saying some. They have a ton of guys back that are coming back for their junior seasons that didn't go to the NFL draft, kind of similar to Penn State that no one's really talking about. So I think Alabama they're my favorite going into the SEC, but they're not priced like it because Texas is grabbing all the headlines. So I really like Alabama to have a really nice season this year, win the SEC, maybe push a national title. And with 10-1, I just think that's a little bit long. I think that's a good number to have going into the season.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think Alabama's going to be good. I also think, Kalen DeBoer, I don't think it was all him last year. I think they have a huge chance to rebound. And that being said, though, the pressure is there for him and Alabama, and it is the expectation is back to national championship expectations, top 3, top 4, win the SEC. I'm going a different route. I'm going to stick to Texas. I'm going to have a rematch of last year's SEC championship, and I'm going to go Texas over Georgia. Kind of went shock in this pick. The issues for me with the SEC is it was so difficult for me to kind of decipher some. I think there's 3 or 4 or 5 really talented teams, and I just think that Texas and Georgia are going to edge out Alabama and get there. And this time, I think Texas is going to beat them. I think Arch Manning is unproven, like you said, but I don't know. I think that he is a shot. I think he's still really talented. I think they're going to be a little bit hungry after how last season ended with losing, to SEC and then losing and then what did they do? They lost to Ohio State. Texas did. So I think they have a lot of fight in their team. I think they're preseason number 1 for a reason. And I just like them. I think they're going to be SEC champions when it's all said and done.
I like it. Yeah. I mean, Arch did not look that great in that second half when he came in against Georgia. I remember watching that last year, but a lot of time will pass since last year going into this year, whole off season to get better. But he didn't look too great in that second half there, but we'll see if that Georgia had their number last year, but I like them to get their revenge. I like that case, like that call out of the SEC.
And then I think also quick, my best bet, I have Florida under 7.5 wins, similar to the Indiana pick. I just think that Florida's schedule is brutal. And they're my disappointing team for a reason, having to play all the, these top SEC teams. It's just going to be tough, I think, for Lagway to get. I can't see them getting to 8-4.
Yeah, no, I saw that 7.5. I had to double check it on the sheet case, only -115. I thought that'd be heavily juiced to the under. That's actually not a bad pick. Might have to put that into the bet slip there before the season starts. Nice pick there.
Yeah, no, it's going to be brutal.
Yeah, no, and I don't think he's lasting all 12. But we will pivot now to let's go with the ACC. Having here, just going to give a little Notre Dame talk so you can hit it for our Notre Dame listeners on the pod since they are technically not in a conference, as we all know. But we'll start with Notre Dame here in this conference. They just named CJ Carr the starter. Highly recruit that they got a couple of years ago, been sitting in the system 1 year now. Finally getting to play. Was a close battle against Kenny Minchie, so another solid backup. So they have two options just in case things go south. Team made the national championship last year, so it's going to be hard to get back there, do better than what they did last year. But I think this team could be better than last year, actually, which is scary to think, depending on the quarterback. We knew what we were getting with Riley Leonard last year. He was so stable. We knew what he was good with his legs. You knew what you were getting. CJ Carr is a big question mark. He could be, really young, really bad. He has a couple turnover problems in camp that I was reading, so it could get ugly there. Or if he hits, he lives up to his 5-star billing. They've really upgraded on the outside at receiver. All the running backs return. The offensive line should be better. So if he could play to that average or a little bit above average, they could really take this passing game to another level. They still have the great ground attack. They could bring in Minchie in some red zone packages like they used Leonard for some of those runs. Watch out for that. In week 1 against Miami, they have their tougher games at the beginning of the schedule with Miami week 1, Texas A&M week 3. They have a bye in there, so they have a bye before Texas A&M at home. So again, they're going to know very early with Notre Dame if they're legit or not, and then they could always trip up like they like to do in the middle of the season. So we'll not be giving them their flowers too early. And then the defense, I think, is actually going to be better than last year. I think they really got ravaged by injuries on the D line last year. They don't have household names on the D line, but I think some guys that have been in the program ready to step up here. Secondary should be elite again. Definitely lost Xavier Watts, Benjamin Morrison in the back end, but Leonard Moore is going to be a household name. He's only a sophomore, really good cornerback. And then they've been recruiting very well in those areas. So I think the defense with Marcus, they lost their D coordinator, but I think their defense is still going to be very, very elite for years to come. So not going to have to ask CJ Carr in the offense to do too much, I don't think. So I think it'll be some more low-scoring games, more ground attack for Notre Dame, similar to last year. But if all things click and they could get that passing game opened up, sky's the limit here for Notre Dame, and I think they can make another deep run into the playoffs. Not saying national championship. I think next year is going to be their year to attack. I think that's going to be a very exciting year when all the pieces kind of fit together. So maybe a little quote-unquote rebuilding year this year, but they'll still be in not a full rebuild, just joking around. But they'll definitely be pushing, I think, a nice playoff spot, and then definitely should be hopefully winning a game or two. But I'm expecting their aim to be right back in the national title mix, and I'm really confident like the trajectory of this program. Do you have any thoughts from a third-person point of view on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said, I don't see them being talked about to win the national championship right now. I think they're right there. I think most national pundits have them in the top 12. They also have another pretty favorable schedule. No Northern Illinois on the schedule this year, so
Thank God.
No, but in all seriousness, yeah, if they beat Miami week 1, like it seems like it should. That's a lot of momentum to carry them through the season. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but the last I remember, it was pretty favorable. And like you said, I think it's very clear that their biggest question mark is going to be quarterback, and a lot of it comes down to quarterback. And will that be the difference maker of being a playoff / national championship caliber team versus just missing or not exceeding expectations? I think there's no doubt they'll have a good line on both sides of the ball. They'll always have a strong defense. So yeah, I really think it comes down to quarterback, and of course they bring back one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in college football. So I don't think they have anything to worry about. I think they'll be right there in the mix. I think it's just going to be one of those things where it might come down to just literally 1 or 2 games. Do they go 10-2 or 11-1 type of thing? And then just see where the rest of the college football field shapes up. No, I don't think they have anything to worry about. I could see it really going either way for them. But certainly, I think that they'll be in the playoff conversation, or 5th or 4th or something preseason, right behind the others. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about anything with Notre Dame. No NIU, like I said, huge break for them.
Right, no NIU, like you said, with a lot of top teams this year too. Like you look at the top 10, top 15. There's a lot of quarterback uncertainty. So I think you really got to watch these first couple of weeks to see how these quarterbacks perform, because we just haven't seen them. I mean, it's a lot of new guys. We had a lot of fifth, sixth year guys the last couple of years at quarterback. So it's a lot of newness, a lot of rounds. So if some of them pop, they could really go big. if not, it could get ugly and you could be seeing 3-4 losses with some of these top teams that we're just not accustomed to seeing. And then diving right into the ACC here with a quarterback that is returning, and then a quarterback that was on another team that transferred in that I kind of like out of the ACC is Georgia Tech and Louisville. Georgia Tech brings back Haynes King. I thought they had a really solid year last year that no one was really talking about, upset Miami. And Haynes King was injured a lot last year, and he's kind of that dual threat guy. Had a shoulder injury, so couldn't really throw. They were bringing the back up a little bit. So I really like the coach there. I think they're really ascending. They could be a team on the rise in an ACC that's kind of down. There's not a lot of top-tier teams besides Clemson. Miami's not really stepping up to the plate, so they're kind of looking for a second, third team. SMU stepped up last year. I don't think they're going to be as good this year. So I kind of like Georgia Tech to kind of be a sleeper that no one's really talking about. I think could really ascend here, have a great season, and also Louisville. They bring in Miller Moss from USC, who I really liked. I thought he had a good season at USC, but again, ton of injuries. It was just a tough season in general, but I think he's a solid player. I like what Louisville's doing, like the coach there as well. So kind of just putting my trust in some of these coaches that I believe in. Jeff Brom at Louisville there, and kind of had nice seasons, but didn't get the playoff or the national media attention. Got to some medium level bowl games. So I think they're ready to take that next step this year, maybe challenge a Clemson or Miami. Not saying they're going to beat them, but kind of be that SMU of last year to kind of sneak up and maybe get their way into a title game. And then, whatever happens from there. But those are two teams I keep my eye on this year that I think could really have good years at the ACC.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Georgia Tech, and they were on my list as well. Like you said, returning a lot of players, quarterback, running back. Also, they had a lot of close games last year against really quality opponents. If you remember that Georgia game at the end of the year. So, a lot of times teams, they play really well, and they look at not to just bash on TCU from a few years ago, but when they were in the national championship and lost by 95 points, they won a lot of those close games. And they really just weren't quite as good as maybe their record. Whereas a team like Georgia Tech, I think they were as good as their record last year. I think they were a couple plays away from winning 10 or 11 games. I mean, so I love that pick. And I forgot Miller Moss was at Louisville too. That's a great point. So I won't talk about Georgia Tech again since you just did. So I'm going to go to another team that's kind of under the radar. Also, similar to my Auburn SEC pick, I'm going to go Pittsburgh. In the ACC. I did some research earlier. They returned the second most amount of players out of any team in the conference in the ACC, 14 guys. Also, their quarterback's coming back, which is, like we just said, that's very big in college football. And by now, everybody should know I'm a big schedule guy. They just have a great break on their schedule. I think they have a huge chance to really get to. I don't want to just say wins, but exceed their win total for the year for sure. So give me Pittsburgh, under the radar ACC team. That Pittsburgh Miami game at the end of the season, by the way, they play each other last game, could be huge game.
Yep, I saw that one as well, and just getting flashbacks the last couple of years in Miami. Weren't they ranked number 2 or something in the playoff poll? Went down there, lost at Pitt. They don't like traveling up to the north here late in the year, so that one's definitely going to be circled for us to watch.
Well, and I may as well then just also go right into my disappointing team, and it is going to be Miami.
Oh, I like it. Good transition.
I may as well just transition it rather than go back and forth. It's every year with Miami. I don't have to do the whole song and dance for them. They're already picked to finish top of the ACC. They're already not top. Clemson is, but right there. They're being talked about nationally. Ranked very high. Playoffs. I'm not buying in. I think they're going to lose some games. I think they're going to not make the playoff. And I think also that's where the bar is for them is, be a top 12 team when it's all said and done. And once again, I think Miami will fall short. So yeah, Miami disappointing, easiest pick of the day.
I can't really hate you for picking that because of the history. They just had Cam Ward, number 1 overall pick, and they lost 3 or 4 games. So, how much was he was very important to that team, but I'm going to slightly disagree with that Miami pick. I actually do like them a little bit. I do like Carson Beck actually probably more than most. I think he was in a bad situation at Georgia, which is crazy to think. Last year, they just couldn't run the ball. I didn't like the OC that Georgia had and the way they were deploying Carson Beck. I feel like he had to do way too much. So I think in a new situation, he's also a little banged up. So watch his health too throughout the year. But feeling a new system, they're going to let it rip like Cam Ward did. So I think he's going to put up some big numbers. But like comes down to Miami is the defense. and the late game decisions by Mario Cristobal. So I'm not going to back them fully. It's why they didn't make my list here as a surprise team or a team that I want to back. But I am a big Carson Beck fan. That's why I'm a little scared going up against him week 1. We will see how that turns out there for Notre Dame. And then one of my disappointing teams is the Syracuse Orange. Again, had a great year last year, got to 9 wins, blew out somebody in the bowl game, I think it was. They won that last game. I think it was against Miami. Actually, it was one of their games that they fell to not reach the playoff. Kyle McCord had a nice season, but they bring in Steve Angeli, just got named the starter from Notre Dame. I love Angeli. He was on the bench a while at Notre Dame, always a competent backup. But I just think this schedule, again, because we're looking at season-long metrics, you got to look at the schedules. You got to, put that into consideration. And they start off right off the bat against Tennessee in Georgia, which is definitely not going to be an easy game. And then they just get, it's just a tough game after tough game. They got to play UConn, which is definitely not an easy game. UConn's definitely on the up and up. Duke, they play Clemson, they play SMU, they play Pitt, which I'm also high on. Georgia Tech, UNC, and Bill Belichick. They play Notre Dame also, and Florida. So they really only have a layup with Colgate and Boston College, and that is their only times they could really take a breath. Besides that, they just got a tough ACC schedule. So I love Angeli, love what they're doing. Like that coach, brings a lot of cool energy to Syracuse. But I think they're just going to have a tough year this year just because of that schedule. And they lost a ton to transfers. A lot of people were picking their players off, a lot of people to the draft. So I think Syracuse could have a tough year in the ACC this year.
Yeah, I mean, and just right off the bat, when I think of Syracuse, Penn State, they stole, their best receiver, that Trevor Pena, and then as you mentioned, Kyle McCord. So yeah, it could be a rocky season for Syracuse. Do you know what their win total is? I'm just curious.
I think it was at 5.5. I was close to putting them or Cal at under 5.5, which is going to be my official conference bet, but I think they were around 5.5. It was a little more juiced. I think it was like minus 160, 70. If you hop on some of these win totals early on in the summer, you could really get some good prices. So we tried to pick some that were within range, not like a minus 200 or something, but I think they were around 5.5. But I'm also going to go with Cal under 5.5. I think they could be along the same lines of Syracuse. I think they're a worse team, but also with a tough schedule. Cal's having a lot of shit hitting the fan. Coach is probably going to be fired after this year. They have Ron Rivera coming in as the GM. He wanted to take over as head coach going into next year. So just a lot of crazy stuff going on at Cal. They got gutted by the portal. They got gutted with players and everything. So they lost their quarterback Mendoza to Indiana, who I think is going to be okay. So they just got nobody on their roster. I like Oregon State to beat them week 1, which we also talk about next week's pod. But Cal under 5.5 wins. It was minus 150, but I still think there's some play there. And then just a little taste to go along with my Alabama to win the national title. I also got Clemson to win the national title 10-1 as well, similarly priced. Didn't talk about them yet because of all the national headlines. Again, can't really surprise anybody. But I think Clemson, again, this is their year. I think they got Klubnik back. I think they got all the pieces in place, added a couple nice pieces from the portal. Defense is going to be lights out. I think Klubnik had a great year, really took off towards the end of last year. I think he's going to ride that momentum. But again, they got a big first game against LSU. That first week, it's going to be make or break. But I think Clemson is head and shoulders above everybody in the ACC. Like I said, I don't see Miami really competing. I like Georgia Tech and Louisville, but I still think they're a step behind Clemson. So Clemson around plus 105 to win the ACC. Thought that was a little low. So why not take them to go big? I think they can compete with the big boys, and I got Clemson maybe hoisting up the trophy at the end of the year.
I love it. Yeah, good. I do agree with the ACC. I have Clemson winning the ACC championship, like you said. They're just a foot higher than every other team. I don't expect the only team really that's getting consideration nationally really is Miami, and as we already said, I have no faith in Miami. So Clemson will win the ACC. This pick, though, Paisley, you're going to love this one. I have Clemson over Pittsburgh in the ACC championship game. Also, my best conference bet for the ACC is, of course, Pittsburgh over 6.5 wins. It's sitting at 6.5. It's plus 115. I'm not saying people need to start betting on Pittsburgh to make the playoff or make the ACC title, but 6.5 wins, that might be my favorite preseason at least win total that I saw. Now, granted, I didn't go through, every team. But I mean, this is perfect. They open up with Duquesne. They have Central Michigan. Then they go to West Virginia. They've had their number lately, and West Virginia has their own issues. They just fired Neil Brown last year. We might talk about them when we get to the Big 12. But Pittsburgh, their schedule is wide open. They go to Syracuse, who you just said you were down on. They have a home game against NC State. They go to Stanford, who's terrible. They go to Florida State, which was won 2 games last year. They can't get any worse. Pittsburgh's probably about as equally talented as a lot of these teams on their schedule. I just think that a lot of things could break their way. They've had a great draw on the schedule. They do play Notre Dame late. They could lose that game. It doesn't affect their ACC record. So, we could ignore that one if they lose it. So that's pretty much my, not only is it my best conference bet, but it's just one of my boldest takes of the year. I think Pittsburgh's going to, really be in the ACC conversation just because I'm so high on Clemson and so much lower on everybody else that somebody has to emerge in second or third. And if it's not Miami, it's probably going to be Georgia Tech or just somebody out of left field like Pittsburgh.
I love it. Pushing all the chips in on Pat Narduzzi and Pitt. Nothing could go wrong there. But
nothing could go wrong. Pittsburgh and Nebraska, one of my 2 favorite teams.
What could go wrong there? But I do like Pittsburgh's quarterback better than most. Watched a lot. I feel like I was betting a lot of Pitt last year, so I was watching them. But national media and people I follow don't really like him, but I think he's a solid player. I think he's really good. So I don't mind that Pitt pick. Not pushing all my chips like you, but I'll make a couple unit-sized bets. And then I got Clemson over Louisville in the championship game for my ACC pick. But yeah, it should be a fun. A lot of teams that really could ascend that are no one's really talking about SMU last year, and then look what happened with them. So Case, calling your shot there with Pitt, and turn it over to the Big 12. And do you want to start off here and talk about?
Yeah, we could go and also no disrespect to SMU fans, but I just think also going back to the ACC, they were so good last year, like they were right there, and I don't think they're going to get to that level. So you could almost throw them in my disappointing category. I don't think they'll be bad, but similar to like an Illinois, Indiana, no disrespect, but it's so high of a bar, and there's only a handful of teams that could do it every year, and basically half the field we probably know already. I mean, I don't want to be cocky, but teams like Texas, Georgia, Ohio State, I mean, right there, I mean, there's only so many spots. I mean, Notre Dame, if they go 11-1, so a lot of these teams I just think are going to be disappointed. But yeah, we may as well get right to the Big 12. We'll start with the surprise team. I have Iowa State as a surprise team, and they're a pretty good team. They're returning a lot. They have a favorable schedule, strong defense. I like their quarterback is Carson Hansen. They have just a good draw, and they have a really tough game week 1 over in Ireland against Kansas State. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I just think that their win total is pretty low. I don't think a lot of people are talking about them to be even in the playoff conversation or be a champion in the Big 12. So I just think that they're going to be a surprising team. You're going to see them at the end of the season. So yeah, watch out for the Cyclones.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, they were in the Big 12 championship last year. I know it was tons of teams going into that last week, and they were the only. Arizona State survived, but I do like Arizona State too. Iowa State. Honestly, I think Matt Campbell's doing a good job over there. Solid program. I think they're gonna have a nice solid year too. I'd agree with that one. I got 2 surprise teams. I got Houston and Utah. So we'll start with Houston. They're definitely lower on the chain. Second year of a new coach from Tulane that they brought in, doing a lot of great things over there at Houston. I think they're really recruiting well. They got a big recruit, which never happens at Houston. So kind of just tracking that trajectory going forward. They bring in Connor Wegman, which from Texas A&M, which again, I feel like he had a bad shake at Texas A&M. The system didn't really fit him. Now he gets to go to a little bit lower level team, play against some weaker competition than the SEC every week. I think he's going to flourish and have a really good year. You looked at Tulane the last couple of years. This head coach builds programs really well at other stops than he was at Tulane. Now he's at Houston. So I think that this program is going to be ascending. I wouldn't hate them kind of challenging at the top here to be a really long shot team at 35-1 to win the Big 12. I think if you're going to get crazy with a conference, do it in the Big 12 because of all the uncertainty. All the teams, we saw Arizona State at about 100-1, I think it was last year. They were picked last in the conference. So not saying it's going to happen, but I think Houston could be a team that people are really sleeping on in a conference that has a lot of chaos. So give me the Houston Cougars to have a really nice season this year. Kind of like their win total too, over 6.5, I think it was. So really high on the Houston Cougars. And then Utah, I was high on them last year. Looking back at our previews from what we did last year, it was a whole Cam Rising situation. There was a lot of uncertainty with that. They bring in Devin Dampier from New Mexico State, which, again, a lot of people probably didn't watch New Mexico State football. They bring in his offensive coordinator as well. He's a dual threat kind of guy, really quick, has some limitations passing, but if he could start opening that up, Utah's going to have a great ground game, one of the best offensive lines in the country. I think Whittingham could still coach at a high level. So I think Utah, people were forgetting about them last year because of all the drama, and they had a really terrible season for Utah standards. But I think they're going to be a team that could definitely take a nice upper echelon seeding in the Big 12 because, again, this is a hodgepodge. There was a ton of teams we could have picked as surprise teams because there's just so many teams here that are floating around that 6, 7, 8 win total. So someone's got to break through. I kind of like Houston and Utah to be my sleepers out of the Big 12.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can't argue with that. And anybody that would argue with those picks, they don't understand that the Big 12 is the March Madness of college football. I mean, it's just wide open. Anything could happen. I think it's very fair that Houston could surprise teams and even, get close to getting to a Big 12, championship or being into that range because you really just don't know. It's the Wild West. And it's part of why I'm going to just transition into the disappointment is Arizona State. I just think it's not that, once again, I don't think they're a bad team, but they lose arguably their two best players. They lose Scatabo, the running back. They lose their quarterback. I think Dillingham's a great coach, but the expectation is just so high for Arizona State. I think they're ranked 11th in the preseason. I think they're the favorite to win the Big 12, which is fair. I mean, they're coming off of just a phenomenal season, but it's similar to why I'm picking, the disappointment teams in the Big 10 and other conferences. And it's really just because it's so high of an expectation. It's such a wild conference that I just don't think they get back to the conference championship. And I think anything short of that is going to be disappointing for them. And for that reason, I'm going to be disappointed in Arizona State. And so will the fans. They're not going to be happy.
Yeah, no, that again, we've been agreeing a lot, but this is where I have to disagree with you, Case. I do like Arizona State to get back to the Big 12 championship game. Actually, of all the uncertainty, I have Houston as my long shot, but if I had to pick, I was struggling. This was the hardest one to pick title game for, but I actually picked Arizona State over TCU. I actually do like TCU too. They tons of surprise teams I could have picked here with the ACC and the Big 12, but really think TCU is going to have a nice year. Keep your eye on them. But I think as long as Dillingham is there, I trust him. I think he's a really good coach. As long as he's at ASU, I think he's going to have consistent talent coming in. He's going to have consistently good seasons. I think not to be the Clemson of the ACC, but that they're going to be that dominant. But I think they could be the steadiest team in the Big 12 in the next couple of years, a team that you could count on with all this uncertainty and scrambling going on in the Big 12. But that'd be my title game pick. And then a disappointing team, I think we might have picked them 3 years in a row, but we're going to go back here, or 2 years in a row, I guess, doing the podcast. Colorado. We're going to go back to Colorado, Deion Sanders. Not a lot of talk. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter leaving, Deion having some off-the-field health issues. So not a lot of publicity, not a lot of, John back and forth with the media every day. So nobody's really talking about them. And I think they're going to go back to where they were the first year, Case. I think they had a really good year last year. Because of the top NFL draft picks that they had, and Travis Hunter, Shedeur did not get picked at the top of the draft, as we know. But I think they're going to really struggle this year with the offensive line, with the run game. You're going to be relying on the passing game, but you don't have Shedeur Sanders back there. So they have a quarterback, a Slater, I think, from Liberty that started the last couple of years, had a really down year at Liberty. Now he's going to move up. They have a 5-star freshman they might be starting as well, maybe rotating both those guys in. But I think Deion kind of only did it for those 2 years. I think he's going to start slowly moving away, caring-wise from the program and everything. He just signed that contract extension, but I think that was more just to lock up some money. So I could really see Colorado floundering again. They're not going to have that hype. They're not going to have the talk every week, but I think quietly they're only going to have about 3-4 wins, I think, this year. I think they're going to have a really tough year down there in Boulder.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that they are so under the radar. I mean, the last 2 years, the national media was just all over Colorado, all over
Mhm.
Deion Sanders, Travis Hunter, Shador Sanders, and that now that those two are gone, it really settled down, and that might just be the best thing going for them at this point is they're not on the national spotlight. So, maybe that'll end up being a good thing for them. But no, I completely agree. I don't think they'll be really in the conversation in the Big 12, but it is wide open. But yeah, I don't see that happening. And if you're Colorado, I think they should just be happy that they're back to being who they really are.
Mhm. Right.
Um, might as well, I guess, jump into just championship get picks, and then my best bet for the Big 12. I don't think I mentioned that, but I'm going to go Kansas State. Who's kind of the slight preseason favorite. And here's the thing. I think it's more likely than not. It's not Kansas State, but it's like one of those March Madness things where I don't know who to pick out of this random conference of 10 teams that could win it. So I'm going to go Kansas State over my surprise team, Iowa State. A rematch of our Ireland game in week 0. We're going to be playing again in 4 or 5 months in the middle of winter to determine the Big 12 championship. So I'm going to go Kansas State over Iowa State for the reasons I mentioned before. And my best conference bet is Kansas State to make the playoff at plus 380. And that's just simply because I know a couple of teams are going to get in from the Big 12. And I think Kansas State just has a great shot of being 1 or 2 leading in the end of the year. So plus 380 and in kind of a conference that's wide open. I just don't hate it. I think they're really good. And so I'm going to roll with them.
I like it. And a little Big 12 championship preview in week 0
Yes.
from Case. That's pretty crazy. So if that happens, if it breaks that way, but I love it. Love K-State.
I hope so.
that'd be quite a treat there in Ireland in week 0. But my best bet from this conference is going to be West Virginia under 5.5 wins. Didn't really touch on them. But I'm also with you. I think Pitt's going to beat them in that week 3 matchup at the Backyard Brawl in Morgantown. They bring back Rich Rod, which you'd never see a coach being brought back after they fire, or I think he might have left on his own terms. But anyway, he's coming back. His first year at some of these new stops, it does take a while. He runs a complex system with the RPO. He likes to get his players in there. I don't think he has them yet at West Virginia. And again, another under that we do not like the schedule. We already talked about Pitt early on. They have some other tough matchups later on in the year against Utah, playing against Kansas, which will also be on week 0. Give a look at them. They play my Houston. They play TCU. They play Arizona State and Texas Tech late in the year. So I just think this is just a kind of a year 0, year 1 of Rich Rod, just kind of trying to build his program, build what he wants to do. I think it's going to be a little choppy, and I think you lose that game to Pitt early on, and then you start having the crowd get on you a little bit there in Morgantown. So I got West Virginia having a tough year. I could see them getting to 5 wins, but I don't see them getting over the 5.5 mark at minus 140.
You think they'll be regretting firing Neil Brown?
Probably not, but they'll probably do the same thing to Rich Rod.
I miss Neil Brown, though. I will say he was a guy that he was just a perfect fit for West Virginia from my point of view. He was fun to watch on the sideline, but yeah, not high on West Virginia either. I could say that. Certainly not high on WVU. All right, I guess that just takes us to the group of 5 to wrap us on the previews. I know we're a little bit over time. We usually are. If you're listening to the podcast, if we say 45 minutes, always tack on another half an hour or so. But group of 5, Mr. Paisley, you're the king of the group of 5 here. I'll let you go first here. What are your thoughts on your? I guess I'll let you pick disappointing or surprising team here out of the group of 5.
Yeah, love my group of 5. Love diving in. Week 0 is going to be a fun slate with only 1 Power 4 games going on, then a lot of Power 5. But I love diving into some of these teams. I'm just going to go give you quick descriptions, maybe not go too deep into these 4 teams that I really like that I think can make some noise in their respective conferences, maybe pull an upset against some of the big teams that they play in the Power 4. But I got UTSA out of the American. I really like their quarterback McCown, son of Josh McCown, who's in the NFL. Really good quarterback. Came into the bowl game 2 years ago, full year last year, coming back for his 3rd year. He's a really good quarterback. Probably could have went up to a lower level Power 4 team, but decided to stay at UTSA. Their offense should be electric. Defense is just the only thing I'm not certain about. I got the Air Force Falcons as another team that I think is going to be really good. Brought back a lot of guys. Terrible year to start last year. Then they really picked it up and played really well the last 5 or 6 games. It was a weird year because they had a good team, but they just didn't play well the first couple of games. I think they started like 1-5, but really battled back. I like what they bring back. So watch out for them in the Mountain West. I think they could potentially scare Boise State, maybe knock them off during the year, then maybe get to the Mountain West championship game. So keep your eye on Air Force and San Jose State out of the Mountain West. I think they're going to be 2 good teams. I got Buffalo out of the MAC. I think Buffalo and Toledo are definitely the 1 and 2 out of the MAC. Toledo always has high expectations and they never really live up to them. So I feel like Buffalo could be a surprise. Buffalo has not been good, I feel like, in our whole lifetime, but I think they really could be the 2nd or 3rd best team in the MAC. Maybe vie for a MAC championship there. Really good defense, really good special teams, really good coach. Just going to need some productivity from the offense. But I think Buffalo, keep your eye on them. I think they are very live. Week 1 against Minnesota, which we also get to next week. They're getting around 15-16. The line is coming down. I think they can maybe beat Minnesota. I'm not too high on Minnesota. That would really put them on the map for group of 5 purposes. And then my last team, this is a household name now, but JMU. I think they're really coming into their own. Really like their coach. They got the quarterback Sluka, who was on UNLV for the first couple games. Then now he's at James Madison, who his coach was from Holy Cross. They were both at Holy Cross a couple years ago, really deep in the weeds there, but had a really good program at Holy Cross up there in Massachusetts. Now they reunite at JMU. Defense is really good. He could really run the ball as a quarterback. On offense. They're going to be tough to prepare for. So I like JMU probably as my favorite group of 5 team if I had to pick one right now. I know you're also high on them, Case, too, but I really like JMU to maybe flirt around with a little playoff spot there if they could break things the right way. They got a big game against Liberty halfway through this season. That should be a big one, but those are 4 teams to really keep your eye on. I think they're really going to make some noise here in the group of 5.
Yeah, no, a lot of great points. The only team I really know in depth that you mentioned is James Madison, and like you said, I think they're the clear cut to win the Sun Belt. They bring back a ton of talent. They had like 7 of the 7 players to go to the Sun Belt All-American like team, so they have practically almost half the entire Sun Belt roster. They had a great year last year, and if they win the championship, I think they have a best of shot as anyone of the group of 5 to be in the conversation, to be that 12th team. And I really hope they are. I think it would be exciting to see them there. It'd be a little bit of a change of pace. Would be good for the sport if James Madison could do something like that. But Paisley, I do have a question here. You are pretty high on Air Force, it sounds like. Do they have a chance to win the Commanders-in-Chief Trophy, the round robin between the Navy, Army, Air Force? Are you going Air Force there, or are you going to pick one of the other military academies?
I would have to have Air Force favored out of those 3 teams. I'd go Air Force 1, Navy 2, Army 3 for this year, which was not the order last year. Army definitely took the cake there, had a really good year. But I do think Army or Air Force could really win that Commander-in-Chief, sweeping both Navy and Army during the year. Watch out for the Blue Falcons. They're going to have a great year this year, which also would lead me to one of my disappointing teams. Hate to do this because I just shouted out, the Air Force and the troops there, but the Army Black Knights, I think, are going to have a rough year here, Case.
Should have saw it coming, Pace. I remember last year you were very against the military academies.
If you listened last year, we did pick against them. Well, I picked against them a lot the last couple games. Hate to do it, but I think a lot of things broke right for them last year. They lose their great quarterback who was there for a lot of years in Daly. They lose along the offensive line, which is big for a triple option team looking to run the ball. So I just think this Army team, unbelievable season last year. Shout out my one friend from college, Zach Schaefer. His dad went to Army. Really big Army football fan, one of the first Army football fans I met. He's not going to be happy to hear this if he's listening to the pod, but I like Army under 7.5 wins. I think they're going to have a tough year. And then this is definitely a team that is going to be disappointing, that could be one of the worst teams ever is what I was looking into, which is the Kent State Golden Flashes. They are one of the worst teams. They are losing everybody. They're asking people on the campus to try out for the football team. Like, if you look up some of these stories, it's crazy. And it's going to be so funny. Their win total is at 1.5. I'm not even joking. They got Merrimack in the first game, who has a decent basketball program, but I didn't even know they had a football team. And that could be their only win of the season. And if they win 2 games, they will go over the win total. So keep your eye on Kent State late in the year. They're going to have some huge spreads. They could be one of the worst teams to be put in a college football field.
Man, Paisley, that makes me just want to go back to college and go to Kent State. It sounds like something right up my alley.
You got years of eligibility left, I think, Case. You could go back.
I do have 4 years. I do have 4 years of
football.
eligibility left. I am actually, though, I'm sorry to tell you this, Paisley. I am pro-America, pro-military. I will not be against the midshipmen here, or sorry, the Black Knights of Army. Pro-Army guy, so I have to disagree on there. But yeah, for Kent State, I don't know what to say about them. That's hilarious. I can't believe. I don't even know if it'd be disappointing though. Is there like any expectation level? If the fans,
Right.
they're just trying to go 0-12. Maybe if they win, if they go 1-11, it might be a good year for them. So no, that's great. That's a hilarious pick. But all right, Paisley, what is your best group of 5 bet?
Yeah, there was a couple here. Do like James Madison. They were close to win the Sun Belt. I think they're head and shoulders like Clemson. I think they're definitely the odds-on favorite, and for a reason, a plus 230, I think it was around. But my favorite bet is North Texas over 6.5 wins. I think this is another program that's on the rise. Really good season last year. Didn't like the quarterback play. They get a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator in there, new defensive coordinator, which is what they really desperately needed on not a good defense. So I think they're really going to shore up some things. They would be my sneaky pick, possibly, to win the American too. They are a team that is on the rise, on the up and up. No one's talking about them. So look out for the Mean Green, North Texas, to have a solid year this year out of the American.
I like it. My best bet, just sticking to chalk here, James Madison to win the Sun Belt. Plus 260. I actually thought it would be even worse odds than that. So I'm going to take it plus 260 for James Madison to win the Sun Belt.
Nice. And then, yeah, I think that's our preview of all the teams here. We'll just dive into a quick week 0 best bets here. Nothing crazy, just only 5 or 6 games on the slate. So I just wanted to touch on and give our fans some picks here. We gave out a lot of season-long picks. Now we'll look to just Saturday. I'll start us off here, Case. Just Idaho State, UNLV over 65.5. Just really quickly, I think UNLV's got a good offensive run game. Idaho State, not a good team from the FCS. If you're looking to back some of these FCS teams, see how they do in prior years. But if you're a bad FCS team, usually does not bode well going up against some of these Power 4 group of 5. UNLV is a pretty good group of 5 team. So I like UNLV to score a ton of points. I think Idaho State could score a couple. So give me an over here in one of the first couple games here of the season.
I love it. Can't go wrong with a little bit of points, a little bit of offense for your first pick of the college football season. I'm excited for this, Paisley. My first pick here, under in the future Big 12 championship in December. However, I'm going to go under in this game first in Ireland. Iowa State, Kansas State under 50.5. My thought process is, we're in Ireland. It's probably going to be raining. These teams have to travel 1,000 miles to play. Going to be jet lagged, get off the plane. It's always a little bit, takes a few drives to get going. 50.5 is not a ton of points. I just think it's just going to be a little bit of a sloppy game. And it's going to stick under. I think we've seen that trend in some of these games overseas, and I don't see it to be any different. So my first pick of the season, under 50.5 in the soon to be Big 12 championship rematch later in the year.
I like it. I'm also going to stick with an under here. Early on, I'm going to look at the Kansas-Fresno State game, under 50.5 as well. This one's more just a tempo play for me. I think Fresno State, again, a group of 5 team I was diving into, a whole new coaching staff from North Dakota State, I think it was, brought a lot of players from there. They're very run-heavy, very slow, defensive-minded, so they're going to look to really slow the game down. I look for Fresno State totals throughout the year, too. I think they're going to be a little undervalued, so I'm looking at unders there. And then Kansas, you would think, because of Jalen Daniels coming back at quarterback, usually put up a lot of points, but their tempo is very slow, too. They're kind of getting back to the Andy Kolnicki pre-snap motion, a lot of motioning, a lot of pre-snap stuff. They take up the full 30, 35 seconds, whatever it is on the play clock every down. So I just feel like 15.5 is too high with the tempo of both these teams and what they want to do. So wouldn't be surprised if this game is really low scoring in the first half and goes way under 50.5.
I like that pick, and it kind of goes in line with my second pick. I'm just taking Fresno with 12.5 points. I just think it'll be lower scoring. To your point, I think it'll be hard to separate, and that's a lot of points, and I think Fresno State is no joke. So yeah, give me Fresno with all the points, 12.5.
I like it. Yeah, not too high on Kansas this year, too. I think they're going to have a little tough year. And then, Case, we got a joint pick here on the last one with our Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, as we did last year on week 0. Best bets. This is a double best bet. Hawaii -2.5 against Stanford. I really like Hawaii this season, not to go crazy, but I think they could get to a bowl game, maybe get to that 6 wins. They play really good at home on the island. They're not too good on the road, so just keep that in mind for full season long transparency. But I think week 0, you got fresh bodies on the island. They're going to be excited. Stanford is not. They are terrible. They might be one of the worst. I think they will be the worst Power 4 team, honestly. And out of all the 4 conferences, they have Frank Reich as their interim head coach because they couldn't find a head coach, and they fired the guy late in the cycle. It's just a mess at Stanford. They don't like any of their quarterbacks. Roster's depleted. So crazy that Hawaii is favored in this game. I think they weren't to start it. A lot of money's come in now, flipped it to Hawaii. But I'm going to back the G5 team playing against the Power 4 team, which is crazy to think. But give me Hawaii. Really like their quarterback. If you're going to watch this game, really nice dual threat quarterback from Hawaii, too. He's from Hawaii, recruited there. So I think he's going to be fun to watch. And I really like Hawaii in this one.
Also, what is going to be better than just a few days from now on a Saturday night, a standalone game on nationally televised CBS than watching the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors? You don't see it often. We're going to get to watch it on Saturday night, standalone 7:30 prime time against a Power 4 mighty Stanford Cardinals. So yeah, couldn't be better. Setup for Hawaii. I'm going to hammer them here. It wouldn't be right not to open up the season with picking against Hawaii. Might be my favorite pick of the year. Hawaii -2.5.
Yeah, I mean, this got to be their Super Bowl, too. I mean, they finally got the worst Power 4 team. They could really make a mark here week 1. It's not on the Hawaii Network. That's a paid subscription. It's on national television.
Yes.
I mean, if they don't get this one, it's going to be disappointing for the Hawaii faithful.
All right, Paisley. Right before we end the show, appreciate, number one, anybody still for tuning around here. I guarantee, I promise they will not be this long throughout the season. We're going to do some things to chop it up. But week 0, we're doing a lot here in the first opening podcast to kick us off in the new format, the new networks and everything. We got one more surprise, boldest take of the year. Me and Paisley will go. I may as well just let Mr. Paisley here tee it off. What is your boldest take of the season?
Thank you, sir, for giving me the honors. In case you said get bold, we're going to get very bold here. We're going to go to the national champions of last year, the Ohio State Buckeyes, to miss the playoffs this year.
Wow.
We are going to get bold, and I did not talk about this team, was saving it up to the end here. I don't like this team this year. Again, people are penciling them in, they're going to go Final Four, national championship again, playoffs. Like, I think this could be a way different Ohio State team. I think we fell in love with the team last year that had all that crazy talent. Will Howard played really good at the end of the year. And something to note that we'll see it definitely early on here in week 1, the coordinators that they lost. So they lost Chip Kelly, who probably shouldn't have been a college coordinator. That was a crazy hire. So things aligned that year. And then Jim Knowles is now with Penn State, one of the best DCs in the country. So losing both of them, you bring in or was it Matt Patricia? No, or I think it might be Matt Patricia on the defensive side from the Patriots. Do not like him. He has not worked at any stops really in the NFL. Now he's coming to college, kind of a late hire because of Jim Knowles leaving later in the year. So it's kind of scrambling there. And then they promoted a guy from within, that wide receiver coach who was a really good recruiter. Now he's the offensive coordinator. So I think losing those 2 coordinators, losing all that talent last year, the running back room was crazy. The D line was crazy. I think they still have Jeremiah Smith and they still have Caleb Downs, who are excellent players, but Julian Sain just got named the starting quarterback. I like him. Again, big test week 1. We'll see how he does. I don't think he's going to fare too well against that Texas secondary. Then I think the doubts are really going to creep in. But I think we just penciled them in last year because of their talent. They weren't close in some of those lower level games until they got to the Michigan game late. But I think this year they could really, look to stub their toe a little bit with some games. I know they play Washington. I know they play Iowa. They have Penn State coming into town. They have some tougher spots this year where I think you'll see an Ohio State team that we're not used to losing some of these games that they normally would just win. So I think they're going to lose week 1. I like Texas in that matchup. I think Penn State gets them. So I think you're talking definitely 2 losses for me. And then I think they're going to trip up, have a third. And then you're talking about a 3-loss Ohio State team. I don't know. They could maybe still get the nod there, but we'll see about that. But go bold case. Ohio State going from champions to missing the playoffs completely.
That is a bold take, Mr. Paisley. I don't know if it'll happen, as you said. It is a bold take, so that's what the segment is. I hope you're right. I mean, that would just be fantastic if we just saw an Ohio State crumble this year. I mean, hey, we saw it with Michigan after they won. We knew that was going to happen the whole way that all played out. But I mean, it is hard for me to imagine, especially with just Jeremiah Smith. And that they can't pull it together. They have arguably two of the three best players in the country. But no, I love it. I like these bold takes. Little change of pace. Mine is Hawaii to make the Hawaii Bowl. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm going to go a team to make the playoff, and I touched upon them a little bit earlier, but it is the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Wow,
are going to slide their way. Well, they're going to finish fourth in the Big Ten. The Big Ten is going to get 4 teams in. It's going to be Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, and we're going to have Nebraska right there in fourth in the Big Ten. Their schedule is perfect. They're going to be Indiana of 2025. They're going to go maybe 10-2. Maybe some are saying here on the podcast they could even be 11-1. It's going to be crazy for Matt Rule. Get ready, Nebraska. It was a long wait, but you're going to be back this year.
Love it. Okay, I think you got to get like Nebraska season tickets or something. You've been on them. You've been backing them a while. Are you giving to the boosters? Are you in the NIL collective? I mean, this is love the Cornhuskers here, though.
You're back. All right. Well, we may as well not waste any more time. We're sitting here at 80 minutes, but like I said, it was the first one. We're gonna. I guess it's Thursday when we're releasing this, so we're gonna release a couple possibly next week. Me and Jared are gonna talk. We might do 2 like 20-minute versions throughout the season, or maybe we'll try to stick it to 1 like 45 minutes to all together. Just once a week might be easier, but we'll discuss that. And yeah, like we said at the beginning, we're now on YouTube. We're still on X. If you are watching on something else or listening, go subscribe to us on YouTube. We're really going to try to, track our viewers and try to get some subscribers. And we're just doing it for fun, but would like to grow the page. So appreciate everybody. A big shout out to Joe, Jared's uncle. I know he's listening out there. So huge shout out to him. Wish a lot of luck to the Irish. And Paisley, any final thoughts here before we end it?
No, let's have a good season, Case. Good luck to all the teams and all the fans out there rooting for their teams. Let's have a good college football season.
Awesome. Take care.